Sarah, there's a lot said about becoming an attraction agent, but to become an attraction agent, that requires a lot of profile marketing.
Yes, no, I agree. And I think as much as everyone wants to be an attraction agent, the reality is that you actually need to get there first. So I think, you know, the first thing you need to do is actually just build up that, I guess, that profile by hard work and by creating, you know, raving mad fans. And then once you've got raving mad fans and they start to give you referrals and then it all starts to come together, and then you start to make money so that you can actually, you know, post on the internet and those sorts of things.
So is it like building blocks? You just start with one, you make the best thing, you do the best you can with that, then you build on it?
Yes, and I think people look at, you know, what they want to do in a year. I don't look at it that way. I'm actually very focused on 3 months, and I use each individual property, I guess, as you talk about, as a block to actually get to the next step, to get to the next step, to get to the next step. So it is very, very specific.
You work in an office that's got some pretty high-profile operators. In fact, some of the best high-profile operators in Brisbane or Queensland, maybe even Australia, who knows? But how do you stand out in that environment? Why would someone come to your office and list with you?
Yeah, you are right. I do work in a remarkable office. And if I may, that's probably one of the reasons why I want to work there, because I actually want to be in an environment where people want to be the best at their craft, and we all want to have that high-performance mentality. You know, I am truly blessed to work in that environment. But I suppose at the end of the day, you know, if I'm coming up against somebody else high profile in my office, quite often what we'll do, rather than fight each other for it, we'll actually just join forces and we'll go for it ourselves. So I think our office has a very different atmosphere to most other real estate agencies, where we're not actually fighting each other. We're actually do genuinely want the best for each other.
Sherry, how important has social media been to you in building your profile?
Well, that's really been a foundation, I suppose, to my business. So I get at least a lead a day from Facebook. Now, some of them may not be my preferred leads, but the reality is that if I'm not able to work it, I might be able to refer it to somebody else in my office or another agency. So I think it is absolutely fantastic. Yeah,
and of course video's given us that opportunity to actually show a lot more personality in what we do. Do you use that in your communication?
Yeah, look, I do. I love video, and I do see the relevance, and I do very strongly believe in video. So as soon as I list a property, I literally do, you know, the 30-second, you know, hold my phone up or my iPad up. And it's really funny, people love those videos. The professional ones, you know, I always get a couple of likes, but I get lots of shares for these you know, 30-second videos that I do. And it's really funny, I literally stand up there, I do one take, and I'm back in the car and I'm kind of running off.
Sure.
But the amount of people that might call me up and say, oh, Sherry, I don't know if you realise, but you said "and" there a few times, or, you know, so people are actually really watching.
Critiquing you.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's kind of great. But, you know, I'll run into somebody in the street and they'll sort of say to me, you know, "Hi Sherry, how you going?" I'm like, "Great, I haven't seen you in ages." And they said, "Well, I feel like I see you all the time because I watch your videos." So I know that they're actually being used. One of the properties that I sold earlier this year, the video was actually shared and I got an offer from somebody else's database, I suppose, on Facebook, which is powerful. You use video also for seller feedback, don't you? Yes, I do. So as soon as I finish an open home, I do send a video to my buyers, but I also do send one to sellers as well, because then I'm in the car, they're dying to find out what happened at the open home, and I don't necessarily have a moment to give them a call at that time. Sometimes, you know, I might need to call somebody hot back from an open home 1 or 2 before, but they know that I'm going to get back to them that day, but they've got an immediate response ready to go. Those videos you do for buyers who come to open homes, are they done for every individual buyer? Not every buyer, but obviously if somebody has come to a few of my open homes that day, they will actually be more specific, because it's clear that they're a qualified buyer who's ready to go now. And what do you say to them? I just generally thank them for their time and for coming through, and see if they have any further, you know, interest to give me a call, and letting them know when I'm going to be in contact furthermore. Have you got a script for that, or is that just done off the cuff? Well, we do it a lot, so I guess we've kind of become a little bit programmed, but no, it's done off the cuff.
Hello once again, and welcome to this week's auction update. We'll have a look at what's happening this weekend. We'll also look back at what's happened over the last full week, as I'm joined by Jeff White from CoreLogic in just a moment.
In theory, you run with your legs. In theory, you play the guitar with your fingers. In theory, graffiti is vandalism, and madness is a weakness. In theory, walls are climbed over. In theory, boats don't fly. In theory, molecules are for chemists. In theory, stunts are done by doubles. In theory, you can't impact science before graduation. In theory, you can't score in every match. In theory, you crack under pressure.
And I welcome into the show my co-host from CoreLogic, or actually he's more than my co-host, he's the anchor really. I'm just the boy who does a bit of talking. Oh. Jeff White from CoreLogic brings us the figures every week. G'day Jeff, how you doing?
G'day Kevin, you're very kind. You're the anchor, don't worry.
Mate, let's bring up the final results from last week, and mate, we could be on our way to a trifecta here.
Well, we might be, yes. I don't know. You couldn't put money on this. The weighted average for the week just gone was 50.9, and it was for the week before that. So 250.9s. Let's see if we can do it 3 in a row. That's right.
Yeah, it'd be nice to actually, the extra bonus would be to go over 50.9, but it'd be nice to see it again to get 3 in a row.
Exactly. Well, it shows that there's some level of consistency in the market, which is the pleasing thing about this, yes.
Yeah. Melbourne, of course, the only one, still peaked over 50%, but the only major cap city, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Adelaide, that actually came back week on week.
Yeah, that's right. Melbourne 52.1 from 978 auctions, and that was down 3% on the week before. By comparison, Sydney 54.3% from 801, which was up 2.2%. So we saw a very high preliminary in Sydney in our earlier video we did, and it settled at 54.3, but it's certainly up on the week before. Brisbane was up, and that had a good number of auctions there at 195 auctions and 33.5%. The week before, it was 28.2%, so that was up about 5.3%. So that's a pleasing sign for Brisbane. Adelaide was actually finished the week before last lower than we thought, and it came up 6.6% to 53.9 from 106 auctions. And Perth, it's been pretty stable with 40% this week, 40.9. Was the same pretty much the week before. And Canberra's taken a little bit of a dip this week from 48.3 down to 39.6 from 57 auctions there, Kevin. So, Melbourne down, Sydney up, and weighted average the same.
Interesting that weighted average of 50.9, Jeff, is on the back of more auctions too, which probably makes it even more successful.
That's why you're the anchor, Kevin. You've picked that up beautifully. And, yes, more auctions than the week before. So, again, you'd sometimes say that the weighted average could take a slight dip when there's more auctions, but it didn't. So that's a pleasing sign. Yeah.
Okay, we'll give you the auction numbers for this coming weekend in just a moment. But before we do that, let's have a look at the Sydney sub-regions. What do we see there, Jeff? Parramatta and Ryde both showing a sign of improvement.
Yeah, over 70 there. And in Ryde, that's been doing very well. I know the auction numbers aren't like Eastern Suburbs or anything like that, but it's still a very strong result, 77.8 from 45 auctions. But then you look at the higher volume ones and you look at North Sydney and Hornsby, 61.2 from 129 auctions. I'd say we've been talking about that for a few weeks now, and that market seems to definitely be performing quite well. Eastern Suburbs, again, 133 auctions there, 58.7, so that part of the market's very strong as well. But there's plenty in that sort of 50s into the 60s. And as we've been saying for quite a few weeks now, Sydney's highest and lowest, there's quite a range. But when you've got, in the 70s there, Inner West at 74.1 again. So, good result overall for Sydney. And that's why it did take a bit of a rise of 2.2% overall.
Indeed, yeah, some good results in there. Okay, let's take you to Melbourne now. A couple of areas in Melbourne up, despite the fact that the Melbourne, average overall did actually come back. Inner and Inner South both up.
Yes, exactly right. So you look at the the inner parts of Melbourne, where they're all over 50, and that's showing consistency in the market. The inner Melbourne, 196 auctions, so a higher volume, 58.8. So you'd have to say that's performed well. Inner East is still performing very well in the 50s now, with 53.9 from 134. And that inner South, 160 auctions and 56.8. So very good result there. So again, Melbourne, save and except perhaps the West, 35.9 from 118, very consistent across the board in Melbourne.
Okay, well, let's take it to the auctions this week. Numbers down in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Adelaide, but up in Perth and Canberra week on week, Jeff.
Yeah, I think that's you're probably likely to see a little bit of a lift before the week before Easter, and I think that's likely. However, having said that, with Easter later this year, some would argue that the winter trends may be starting to come into play. If you add up between Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne, we're actually 300 auctions down just between those three capitals. But having said that, there's plenty of auctions, plenty of auction activity, and Sydney with 700 that we're tracking so far, Melbourne 840, Brisbane down this week about 70 auctions, down to 117. Adelaide also down about 25 auctions to 83. Perth is interesting. It's gone up, so 45 auctions in Perth.
Yeah, 45.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Big percentage when you consider it's about 20 auctions up on the week before. Canberra at 72. So overall, we're tracking 1,862 compared to the 2,164 the week before. So. We'll see. But the pleasing thing is, Kevin, is that we're starting to see some real trends in the market, and I think we can confidently say that we're now tracking at a rate that is better than last year, and I think that's instilling a bit of confidence into the buyers and sellers. Yeah,
well, it's certainly very encouraging, isn't it? And it's reflecting too in our final slide, which is once again the rolling averages. We've talked a little bit about that tick up at the end. Nothing terribly dramatic this week because we had week on week the same kind of result. Yeah,
that's right. So it's still at that point where we can see a trend, that U-turn, and I don't anticipate that we're likely to see any major uplift in the clearance rate over coming weeks. But it's a positive sign, and when you look back over the that goes back to 2009, that graph, and we're significantly better than what we were in 2011 and 12 now. We're sort of back to that March 2012 level, but better than the end of 2011. So you could have to say the market overall is not as bad as it certainly was. Yeah.
And of course, this weekend sees the end of daylight saving as well. A reminder for everyone to wind their clocks back. So, it doesn't really impact the auction market at all. I wouldn't.
No, not really. No. The impact that we probably saw in Melbourne last week, and I'm not sort of saying this had the impact, but it could have contributed. It was a pretty shocking day in Melbourne last Saturday, and weather-wise. So that could impact. Daylight saving, not so much. No, it just means that the sun comes up a bit earlier for Melburnians, and they can get out and about a bit earlier.
Yeah, well, it actually fades the curtains quicker, doesn't it, or something? Isn't that what happens?
I know, yeah. That's
what about the poor old cows? I mean, what about the dairy farmers? The cows are going to get confused, aren't they?
Correct, that's right. Well, if the cows are confused, I'm confused. Yeah.
It's always good talking to you, my friend. You have a great weekend. I know you're going to be nice and busy out tracking all those auctions for us. We appreciate it, and we'll catch up with you on Monday as we look at a wrap from what's happened over the weekend. So all the best, Jeff. Thanks very much for your wonderful insight.
Thanks, Kevin. Talk soon.
And I'm Kevin Turner. We'll see you on, as I said, with Jeff on Monday. We'll have a look at what happened over the weekend. Don't forget, Real Estate Talk is out tomorrow. All the best. Look forward to seeing you on Monday.
Evening, Clara. Home, please.
David, what's on your mind?
I was just thinking of a different time is all. It was a time when I used to sit up there, you know. Driving wasn't just about being taken from place to place, but going somewhere. Feeling something along the way.
Please, David, you should relax.
I'm afraid that's just the problem.
David, where are you going? David? David?